Welcome to Acquiring Access with Keisha Anderson.
Good morning, everyone who is dropping in. Happy Thursday. My name is Keisha Anderson, and I am a student storyteller for the Faculty of Student Development. My pronouns are she and her, and this conversation is taking place on the Tecumlip's to Secwepemc territory within the unceded traditional lands of the Secwepemc Nation. Welcome to Acquiring Access, a live video series with TRU Student Life. Today we are going to meet a very lovely lady, and just before I introduce this wonderful woman, I just want to say that she kind of, in a way, inspired this series, because I remember talking to, my team and being like, this would be a really cool thing to do, to interview these people, and my team was giving me ideas, and I was giving them ideas as we do, but I'd had a meeting with this particular person who I'll introduce momentarily, and I was like, she's so fantastic, and she's probably got some really great things to say, and it kind of led into this series a bit. So she's kind of a little bit to thank. Let me now introduce Evelyne Penny, our learning specialist at TRU. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. How are you today?
I am well, yeah.
Oh, that's great. I'm so happy you're here. So as it is with all of these interviews, I've got lots of questions for you. So do you want to just get started?
Absolutely, I'm ready. In the
All
hot
right.
seat. I put my glasses on first, actually. I can see my notes. Okay.
Yeah. I need one of those horns or whatever. All right. So, can you please tell us a little bit about your role at TRU?
So I'm a learning specialist. So I work with students with disabilities in the Accessibility Services Office. So I work one-to-one with students on academic success strategies. So things like note-taking, time management, study skills, organizational techniques. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember coming to you and asking you kind of laying out my struggles in terms of how I was staying organized and what I was encountering, and you having lots of really excellent tips to help me out with that. So it's a great service, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Our services are only for students with disabilities,
Yes.
but I'm hoping series like this, and I've done some workshops as well to open it up to others, to the entire student populace, which is great too. Yeah.
Oh, we're really grateful for that. So, all right. So my next question for you is so we kind of asked this question to kind of just break down the barriers between the social kind of barrier, I guess, between faculty and students. I mean, not unprofessionally, of course, but yeah, we just kind of want to touch on what did you study in school, and what were you like as a student, just so we can kind of relate to you.
Yeah, well, I was a pretty solid B student. I
Me
wish
too.
I knew then what I know now, because I think I could have really upped my game. I was doing things like just reading the textbook, which I know now is one of the most ineffective study strategies and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I tried really hard. Math was always really challenging for me. I was at the Math Help Center all the time when I had to upgrade some math. So I got through that with a lot of grit and determination and lots of practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I started out actually at TRU. Back then it was called the University College of the Caribou. I did 2 years, got a lot of prerequisites for my English degree, and then I transferred to the University of Victoria. Finished my English degree there. I loved it in Victoria, was having a great time, wanted to stay, and got into the education program there. So I did another couple years there, and then came back to Kamloops and worked for a while. Then I ended up going back and doing a master's degree in adult learning disabilities. So that was fantastic. And then I also did teaching ESL. So teaching ESL is a second or additional language certificate as well. Sort of my educational path, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Um, Okay, well, that totally answers my next question for you, which was kind of going to be about what your professional pathway was. So you're on the ball. And yeah, that's really interesting. Like, um, I often like hear and I've always kind of heard growing up that like you change your path quite a bit throughout your life, and so I've loved doing these interviews and kind of hearing how people do that, and like and then how it leads them to where they are today. So that's very cool.
Yeah,
Um,
oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, no, you.
Oh, well, I can tell you, like, just with the jobs, yeah. So I started out working at the pulp mill here in Kamloops. I was really lucky to get that job. It paid really well, so I didn't have to get student loans, which was amazing.
Oh,
So my first job there was actually in the yard crew.
oh
So
wow.
I dug holes and I swept up construction sites, and then I got transferred to the chem plant where um, lots of trucks and trains come in with a lot of toxic chemicals, and I was the one sucking them out these chemicals in the middle of the night on these shift work and stuff. I remember my training was that'll kill ya, and that'll kill ya. So that was interesting. um,
Wow.
yeah, and then I ended up going to a bunch of fitness classes when I was in Victoria, and really enjoyed them. And I thought, I have a dance background, so I thought, I could probably teach this. So I ended up doing
Ooh.
some fitness training there. I ended up doing personal training and became a group fitness instructor. That actually
Nice.
led to a job at the YMCA that I did for a couple years as a group fitness coordinator. And that's actually where I really got my love of working with adults.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then but I ended up getting a degree that was good for kindergarten to grade 12. So I ended up subbing. I subbed a lot in elementary school. So I did that. I worked with the TESOL certificate. It opened up a lot of doors for teaching international students. So a really cool job I had for a few summers was working for TRU World as an ESL instructor.
Yeah.
And the programs I was teaching were activity based. So there's a lot of students from Japan and China, and we teach them about horseback riding or camping, and then we'd actually take them and do that activity. So
Wow.
yeah, and then we still have those programs today at TRU World. Yeah. I've also worked the master's degree a lot of special ed opportunities. So I've also worked as a learning consultant in support education for an independent school called Self Design, and it's actually for homeschooling families. So, which has been amazing during this pandemic. Actually, that school is now completely huge wait list to get into it because there's so many learners who are doing home learning right now. So yeah, so it's really interesting how the links between the education that you take and the jobs you experience, and sometimes they intermesh too, right? So one thing leads to another, and yeah, and then here I am today. Yeah.
Well, and I love, first of all, I love the diversity. Hearing about all the diversity, because sometimes in life, I've thought this, and I know I have friends and people that I care about who think about this too, or like, you're on a certain path, your path may diverge, but it's gonna relatively stay on the same path. But I love hearing stories about really diverse like career journeys. I think that's just fantastic, and that's totally that's just really great to hear about. And also like I loved the way that you just told us about your path, because when you how you went and like um taught adult students for your fitness classes, and how that kind of like led into your later wanting to work with adults like on an education wavelength. And that is just that's so cool. Like I don't know, it's really exciting. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us.
You're
um
welcome.
and do you still teach fitness?
I do, yeah. It's something that it's kind of a passion for me. I really enjoy it. So I actually have taught quite a few classes for TRU. So there's a wonderful program at TRU for free classes for students and staff and faculty. So it's unfortunately not running right now because of COVID, but it's been there for many years. And it's just an amazing thing to just wander over to the gym on your lunch hour and get these awesome classes. So yeah.
And like, what sorts of fitness types do you teach?
Yeah, so the great thing about that job at the Y that I had was there was a ton of free training. So I really took advantage of that. And pretty much teach everything now except for yoga. That's the one certification I don't have. A couple years ago, I was certified in Pilates. So I teach bar, Pilates, spin classes. I used to teach step. I used to love step aerobics. I still hope it makes a big comeback because that was one of my favorite classes to teach. Boot camp, HIIT classes, stretch classes, and the big
Oh,
thing right now in fitness is fusing a lot of different kinds of classes. So I'm teaching a couple of classes, some Zoom classes online right now, and one's called Pilates HIIT with bar legs. So it's a little
wow.
bit of, yeah, we do like some bar stuff with a chair, and then we transfer into some, cardio work, which we can't do cardio classes in public right now. So
Hmm.
with the COVID restrictions, and yeah, so yeah, it's a really great way. You know, really enjoy being creative that way, and it's kind of a creative outlet to design these classes and teach them. And you get a lot of social interaction. It's very high energy, so yeah, it's really rewarding to teach those classes.
That's super cool. I'm actually a huge spin enthusiast, so I'm trying to look into doing that training. But that is very, very exciting and it- like a wide range too. And yeah. All right. Man, I just answered like a bunch of questions that I had coming up next.
I
But
can add to them. That's all good.
but that's okay. No, that's fantastic. But maybe I'll ask, and if we've already answered them, that's great. But if there's more that you'd like to add, that's awesome too. So do you have any hobbies or like a side hustle on the go?
Yeah, well, my side hustle, I guess, is the fitness classes.
Yeah.
Adds a little extra income and something I really enjoy. I'm a
Hmm.
huge outdoor enthusiast, so I just love mountain biking, cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, hiking. I have a big Bernedoodle that I've actually told my husband he has to keep in the basement right now so he doesn't bark during this.
Oh,
So it's
a
great
dog.
to
That's the
get
type of
him.
dog.
Yeah, it's a mix between a standard poodle and a Bernese mountain dog.
Oh,
So he's
cute.
a
Okay.
big fluffy teddy bear, so it's great to take him out on hikes. He likes going on adventures. One hobby that I don't do anymore, but I did for many years is saltwater. Be a saltwater aquarist is actually the formal name. But
Oh,
yeah, I really got
fancy.
into saltwater aquariums, and we had this huge aquarium in our house. Took a lot of science and biology to kind of figure out what creatures you could put in and to get the water perfect, the right mix of salt and all this kind of stuff. When I had kids, it just became too much. It's a lot of work, so I let it go. I sold everything, but yeah, I'd like to do that again one day because it's really relaxing, self-regulating, watching these beautiful creatures swim around in the tank and stuff. So, yeah,
Ah, that's super
I
cool.
think I've added to it. I think we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have. That's awesome. Um, all right. Now we're gonna get into the more nitty gritty. Um,
All right.
but I know we can handle it. All right, but can you tell me about a time you had to overcome a challenge and what did it teach you about yourself? So, in like anything,
Sure.
whatever you feel comfortable.
Okay. Well, a few years ago, I broke my left foot. I'm actually teaching a fitness class.
Oh,
Yeah, I know, right?
ouch.
Yeah, that was a bit awkward.
Painful.
Anyway, so I ended up in the hospital, got, the big cast on my foot. Got home, made a cup of tea. I managed to stumble through that. I had the crutches, and I remember thinking, okay, wow, I have this cup of tea sitting here, but how am I going to get it over to the table now, right? Because I couldn't use
Uh,
my hands. At that time, I was only working part-time, so I'd given up my daycare spots, and I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my husband works. So I thought, how am I going to do this, right? How am I going to grocery shop? How am I going to walk? How am I going to get the kids out to activities? Um, and I really like to be as self-sufficient as possible. So I started doing some research on mobility devices to try to figure out how I could live my life for 10 weeks like this. The first thing I came across is a knee scooter. which my kids had lots of fun putting tassels on the handlebars. So you put your knee on it and you scoot along with your other leg. So I rented that from St. John's Ambulance, which was wonderful. If you ever have any injury and need to rent equipment, they are wonderful there. So that solved some of the problem, but I still couldn't use my hands. So, and toddlers, you're constantly picking them up and, things like that, especially when you're out and about somewhere.
Yeah.
So I dug a little deeper, I did some more research, and I came across this thing called an eye walk. So it's essentially a peg leg. So I was lucky, yeah, peg
You get to be a
leg, my last
pirate.
name's Penny, yeah, so they're like, peg leg Penny, here she comes. But what you do, so I was lucky in the fact that the cast didn't cover my knee, it was just on my foot. So you essentially bend your knee back, like bend your leg back, and strap your leg onto this peg leg. So the first time I used it, I fell, I was all over the place, but I was really determined to get really proficient at it. So I practiced and practiced. Within 2 weeks, I was grocery shopping because I could hang onto the cart, right, and then walk. So you could pretty much walk pretty normally. I was lucky I broke it in June, so I didn't have to deal with snow and ice.
Yeah.
And so I could grocery shop. I ended up mowing the lawn with that thing.
Wow.
So I had my kids on the stroller, So what it taught me is that when you have something like that happen, you have to be really creative and think out of the box. And so, and also how much determination, determination goes a long way. If you really put your mind to something and are determined to get through it and keep that positive attitude, you can do it, right? And because exercise is such a big part of my life, I had one leg that just wasn't working, that I couldn't stand on. That's when I started getting into bars, because I could scoot into the studio. I could use a chair and put my knee on it, and then I could wing my other leg around. Like I could stand on my good leg, and my bad leg. In bar, there's a lot of things where you have to lift your leg up. So I had the cast on, but I could still lift my leg and do all the aerial stuff.
Yeah.
I just kind of got creative, and I ended up becoming a bar instructor because of that. So it actually led to some positive things as well. And the eye walk, I met so many people through that, because so many people would come up to me and go, oh my gosh, my Uncle Bob just broke his ankle. This would be perfect. Where did you get it? So it actually became kind of a talking piece and really social, and I actually met a bunch of people through that as well. So.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's so
so I
brilliant.
You do what you got to do, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I just kind of tried to make it work as best I could. So, yeah.
Huh, that is really cool.
Yeah, so if you ever break your foot, look up the eye walk. It's amazing. Yeah.
All right, we'll definitely keep that in mind. Okay. So this is more pertaining to your actual role at TRU. So what are some frequently asked questions that students ask you, and what are some solutions that you provide to them?
Yeah, so I think the most common ones I get is about time management and organization. Most students work now, and a lot of students work a lot, and then they've got 5 courses, so it gets really, really busy for them. So I think that's a common thing that comes up in most of my appointments. So what we do there is, I think the first conversation I have with students is, well, let's look at what you're doing. Is it actually manageable? Like, is it actually doable, first of all? So we look at sort of, the commitments and work they have in their life, and then what courses they're taking. And sometimes that might mean, dropping a course, or if possible, working less hours. And then after that, it's really breaking it down into sort of from a macro to a micro level. So I often will say to students, let's go through your course outlines. We're going to, visually on a calendar, we're going to write out all those due dates so you can see when things are coming up. I work with a lot of students with ADD or ADHD, so that really helps with organization as well. And then from there, we break it down even more. So what does your week look like? Here's a weekly schedule. Let's cross out all the times that you're busy. And very important to also put wellness activities in there as well. So when you're going to go to the gym, when you're going to, go grocery shopping, all these things we're going to plan out, right? Always in pencil because life happens and sometimes you have to replan, right? So I've had students say, I get so anxious because I'm not sticking to the schedule because something happened, right?
Yeah.
And then we take those assignments, we break them down. It's called chunking. So, you have a big history essay to write. What do you have to do for that? What are the steps? Find your topic, find your sources, make an outline. Okay, so we got that. We have these steps. Now, when are you going to do it? So we break it down even more, right? And for students with disabilities, mental health, especially where they need that kind of schedule and motivation, ADD, as I said, ADHD for organization, it's really important to plan the day because sometimes your day gets away from you and suddenly it's 11 at night. You had all the best intentions to, work on your history essay, but it just didn't happen. So if that scheduling will really help to kind of go take it down to the next level and say, this is what my day looks like. I have that space from 9 to 10 a.m. I know I've dedicated to work on it. What's my priority? So what's coming up? So maybe in that hour, I'm going to find my topic for my history essay and find my 10 sources. That's my SMART goal. So my specific, achievable, measurable goal for that particular amount of time. So I think that's one of the big things that I work on a lot, and it kind of ties in with the organizational strategies as well. And then there's other strategies as well, so like note-taking strategies, study skills, things like that, sort of the best way. I talked a lot about, and I think a lot of students still do this, is we read the textbook. The instructor will say, your test is coming up on Friday, read chapters 5 to 7. But we know that reading is really ineffective. It's very passive. We're reading, we don't really understand. We're not really analyzing what we're reading. We're not thinking about what we're reading. We don't know if it's going to be on the test. So it's much better to do targeted reading, where you look at the PowerPoints or the lecture notes, create questions from those, and only read what you have to, right? So go into the textbooks, use them more as a resource and a reference to find out information, and always go in with a question that you want answered, because suddenly that turns from passive to active reading. So now you're synthesizing information, you're analyzing, and your brain's super happy because you've given it a job to do. So instead of reading the page, and getting to the bottom and knowing what you're going to have for lunch and everything else because your mind has wandered, you're much more on target and on task. So those are some of the top tips that I give students that come and see me.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I feel like I'm even learning more today.
Oh.
Even than I did when I met with you.
Oh, well, you can always come back for another appointment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. That. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, who is eligible for your support, and how would they get in touch with you?
So any student with a documented disability is eligible for supports. It's really great to get the word out that it's, I think sometimes people hear accessibility services and they think it's, for physical disabilities or things like that. But the majority of disabilities that we work with are mental health, ADD, ADHD, autistic spectrum, and just a different variety as well but those are the most common ones. So the best place to access information is actually on our website. So if you just go to the general TRU website and then type in accessibility services, it'll come up. It explains sort of what you need for your first appointment. What you'll do first is bring your documentation and book in with one of our accessibility services advisors. They look at your documentation and they talk about what services and accommodations we offer, such as exam accommodations, things like that. And then they'll refer the students to me, and then you can book an appointment with me. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. All right, I have a couple more questions for you. So,
okay.
What's your favorite part of your job?
I think it's the helping, right? So I really get a lot of satisfaction of students coming to an appointment and then coming in again and saying, you know what, that strategy really worked for me. Or, you know what, I got a C on my math test when they've been failing it, right? But now they've used some strategies and they've pulled their marks up. So I find that really rewarding. I also love bumping into students out and about, and past students I've worked with, and just see what they're up to,
Yeah.
and hear their success stories and where they're working and what they're doing. So I think it's the interaction with people that I really enjoy, and the helping aspect. Yeah.
Definitely. All right, and my final question for you before we part ways is, can you tell me what accessibility means to you?
Yeah, so accessibility to me is there's an expression called leveling the playing field. And essentially what that means is you put tools, services, and accommodations into place so that the student or the individual can meet their potential, and it creates equal access. That's it in a
Absolutely.
nutshell. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to thank you so much again for taking the time out of your day to be here with us and to
Yes.
answer all of these many questions. And
No problem. Yeah, thank you
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. And everybody, this has been Evelyn Penny, who is our learning specialist on campus. And yeah, just thanks for everyone to everyone for popping in. And yeah, I'm just super glad we were able to have this chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Keisha. Talk to you later.